everybody, Jane here, and today I am reviewing WunderSmith by Jessica Townsend. This is the Calling of Morrigan. It is the sequel to Nevermore. So I'm going to do kind of a real basic overview, because if you have not read Nevermore, anything I'm going to say about the book pretty much would be spoilery. So I'm going to do like a real brief overview, a real brief kind of what I liked, and then move into a spoiler section that is more spoilers for Nevermore than WunderSmith, because a lot of stuff happens in Nevermore that comes into the story, and it's really hard for me to not spoil Nevermore by talking about this book. If you've been following my channel, you know I was not a big fan of Nevermore. I liked the characters, the plot was okay, but I had a real hard time with the world building. I did not have that issue in this book. This was a 5 out of 5 for me. I really, really enjoyed it. I still love the characters. I would argue the plot in this book was better, and the world building, there were still a couple things I had issues with, but overall, the world building was a lot easier to digest, and I super, super enjoyed this. This is about Morrigan, and in book 1, in Nevermore, The Trials of Morrigan, she's a cursed child who comes to live in Nevermore because Jupiter, her patron, wants her to do these trials to try to get into the Wonder Society. Like, they have 300 candidates maybe, and only 9 are allowed to be in the society. And the society has all of these benefits to being part of it. And one of the benefits for Morrigan is if she passes the trials and gets to stay in the society, she gets to not die. Because she is a cursed child, and if she was living back in where she came from, she was supposed to die on her 13th, on her birthday. So this book is what happens after the trials. And again, I'll get into that more in the spoilery section, but if you've never read Nevermore, yeah. So I think the only other things I really want to say is if you tried Nevermore and were kind of meh, try this one. It was a lot better. I will be continuing the series, and I may go back when the next book comes out and reread Nevermore and see if I like it a little bit better now that I've got some of the world building down. In Nevermore, I think one of the things that was difficult is Morrigan doesn't live in our world. She already lives in a fantastical world, and so you're trying to figure that out, and basically you can't even figure that out before she gets taken to Nevermore. And then you're trying to learn that, and it's so confusing. And that is a little bit still an issue in this book. And the magic system's a little bit confusing in the first book, but it makes a little more sense in this book. It just, it's a big, complex, confusing world, and I didn't necessarily feel like it was explained as well as it could be. And I had that problem just a tad bit in this one too. Like, there's some stuff that happens near the end that I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about, but I assume that's going to be important in the next book. Because that's kind of how I felt now reading this, that like a lot of the stuff that wasn't explained in Nevermore became important in this one and was kind of better explained. So I'm not going to spoil any of Nevermore, but if you read Nevermore and were kind of meh, WunderSmith is so much better. 5 out of 5. Definitely recommend if you like YA fantasy, or middle grade, I guess it is. Middle grade fantasy. It is a fairly big book, but it goes by fast, and there's pictures, and it's good. So good. I really, really, truly enjoyed this. So I'm going to go ahead and move... I'm going to move on to the spoilery section. Now, I'm not going to spoil this book necessarily. There might be a couple minor spoilers. I'm mostly going to be spoiling Nevermore, by explaining what this book is actually about and why I loved it. So if you have never read Nevermore, you probably don't want to continue this until you do. If you've read Nevermore, you're probably fine to continue. If you are leaving me now, just the social media like and subscribe buttons down there, and I hope to see you next time. Otherwise, we're moving on into the spoiler section, and come along with me for this ride. So in Nevermore, we learn a couple important things happen. Number one, Morrigan becomes part of the society, the Wondrous Society. And also we learn that her knack is that she is a WunderSmith. And that the WunderSmith are kind of the bad guy, or we're led to believe that they're the bad guy. It's kind of the Voldemort in this world. A guy named Ezra Squall, maybe? I don't remember his name. But he's a WunderSmith, and he's very, very evil, although I feel like in Nevermore we didn't really get a full download of why he's evil. And in this, he's much more evil, and we get a little bit more of a feel for that. But this book, okay, she's part of the society, and the kids, the 9 that were chosen, get to go to this magical school together, the Wonder Society school, and learn about their knack. And the other kids are told that, in her group, are told that she is a WunderSmith, and of course that doesn't go well because WunderSmiths have always been evil. The teachers don't necessarily treat her very fairly, and all kinds of craziness starts happening. But I really liked that she was kind of confused about things in the world, because then we learned about it beside her with the school. That was one thing I just had the worst time with in the last book, as so much was happening and so much didn't make a lot of sense to me. And because she's learning so much, we get to learn about Nevermore right along with her. And I really love that in this book, even though, there are things that don't work, and as far as we still don't know certain things. But we know a lot more. We know more about the WunderSmith. We know more about Wonder itself, because that was the one thing that I found really confusing in the first book. We know Wonder's a thing, but I don't really know what it is or how it works. And we learn a lot more about that in this book. What it does, what it can do. Also, we just learn more about the setup of the Wonder Society and the world. And it just was a fun ride, and it was a lot less confusing this time around. So I really love that. There's also kind of the main plot. Not only is she in the school, but Jupiter is investigating people who are going missing. And that plot plays heavily into this. And I feel like that's not really a spoiler, because you learn pretty early that somebody's missing and that people continue to go missing. And Morrigan kind of gets sucked into a little bit of a mystery plot of trying to figure out, well, why are these people missing and where are they? But it was a lot of fun. There was a lot of again, the Harry Potter trope-ish stuff in the first book as well as this one. But it was really, I don't want to say better done, but it was really well done. There are moments that you just go, okay, yeah, that's pretty much what they did in Harry Potter. But I didn't dislike that. Especially some of the big reveals kind of felt like we've seen it before. It's very tropey, but I didn't mind. This book is about Morrigan coming into her own. They do a lot more exploring of her figuring out what it means to be a WunderSmith, exploring of the different character relationships. And it was really, really good and really enjoyable. And I really am glad I read this, because I was really hesitant to read it because I didn't like the first book very much. I really struggled with the first book, and I was so disappointed with the first book because everybody hyped it, and I thought I was going to love it, and I really didn't like the first book, but this one I really did like, and I definitely recommend this. Now you kind of have to read Nevermore first, and Nevermore's not nearly as good, but this book was so good, and I really truly enjoyed it. I think I read it in 2 days, maybe 3 days, and it's a fairly big book. Like I said, it's not a dense read. It is YA, middle grade YA, middle grade I'd say, but it's not a dense read. But oh my gosh, so good. So many topics like friendship, self-identity. One thing that I had challenges with in Nevermore that kind of comes up a little bit in this book is the fact that I still don't really understand Morrigan's world that she came from and where Nevermore is within its relationship to her world. And there is some stuff that happens later in this book that I'm assuming is going to carry into the next book that's important, and not understanding the geography and relationships between the countries is a little bit rough and makes my understanding limited. And that was the only thing that I found really frustrating, is when some of the stuff from outside of Nevermore came in, I struggled again a little bit with not really getting it. So that was the only part that I really did feel like we still had some problems with explanation. And I really wish that the author could have maybe given us a map, or maybe given us a little bit of a history lesson. And there was opportunities to do that on Nevermore and the surrounding countries. And I feel like she lost an opportunity there because, they're in school. You learn a lot of stuff. You could have learned more about the history of your country. And then I would have understood more about why the things that happened near the end happened. I'm not spoiling anything, because even if there's a big reveal, but it doesn't make sense to me at all, as far as it involves stuff happening in the other world, but I don't understand enough about the other world to even spoil it, and you probably don't either if you didn't read Nevermore. Or even if you read Nevermore, you probably don't understand. So that is the one thing that I'm not loving about the series, is I feel like the author kind of throws stuff out there and is like, yeah, I'll explain that later. And you're just like, I would really rather you explain some of it to me now, because I find it confusing. Instead of me waiting and hoping that in the next book you're going to explain to me how all this stuff works. Especially when you had the chance to do that in this one and failed to. So, other than that, small issue. This was a 5 out of 5, a great book, recommend. Comments below, please, if you've read, if you thought the same, if you maybe feel like I just missed stuff. Is there maybe a place online to learn more about this world that I don't know about that would help me? Because that's where my biggest challenge has been with this series in general, is just the lack of explanation about elements in the world. This book did a lot better with that because of Morrigan being in school, but I'm still struggling a little. So I would love to hear what you have to say. If you read this and Nevermore, did you like Nevermore? Did you like this better? Did you like that one better? My social media is also below, and see you guys next time. Bye.